Last year, the Parliament of the World's Religions voted to adopt a declaration for the dignity and human rights of women. It drew from a number of sources and was written in language that would apply to all faith traditions. It reads, "Being treated justly and with respect should not depend on whether one is male or female. The principle of treating others the same way one wishes to be treated is stated in one form or another throughout the religions of the world. We must all be treated with justice, respect, kindness, and love. It is impossible to imagine a God, a divine source, a sacred and ultimate reality that is unjust. There is no religion that despises women, for hatred and oppression cannot come from the heart of God or Goddess or Holy Mother Father, nor flow from that which is divine, the Creator, the One, the Source, the All. It is impossible to imagine the healthy, sustainable, just, and peaceful world of our collective future without the spiritual wisdom and leadership of women." OSEA Inc. presents the Donald H. McGannon Award in recognition of special contributions to advancing the role of women and persons of color in the media. Over the years, we have honored persons like broadcasting executive Don McGannon, as well as organizations who have done significant work toward achieving this goal. This year's honoree is the Global Media Monitoring Project of the World Association of Christian Communication. The project is the largest advocacy initiative in the world, seeking to improve the representation of women in the media. Every 5 years since 1995, it has conducted the largest longitudinal study of gender in the world's media, tracking such metrics as the numbers of women on the screen, in bylines versus men, gender bias, and gender stereotyping in content. It involves participants ranging from grassroots observers to academic researchers to media practitioners, all of whom serve on a volunteer basis. Its next survey in 2020 is expected to involve volunteers in 130 countries. The survey is the longest-running initiative of its kind. It is fitting that we celebrate this work because that is, after all, how OSEA Inc. got its start. When Everett Parker recruited volunteers to monitor whether television stations in the Deep South were truly covering all members of their local communities during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. Sarah Macharia serves as global coordinator of the Global Media Monitoring Project, as editor of its 2010 and 2015 reports, and as Gender and Communications Manager for the Christian Communication Association. Sarah also represents the association on the board of the Global Alliance on Media and Gender, organized by UNESCO. We are thrilled that she has traveled from Africa overnight. She says it's good she's traveling west because it's nighttime on her body clock, to be with us this morning to accept the McGannon Award on behalf of her organization. Please join me in welcoming Sarah Macharia.
On behalf of the World Association for Christian Communication and the Global Media Monitoring Project Network in more than 120 countries around the world, thank you. It is an incredible honor to receive, not only to have been nominated, but to be the recipient of this year's Donald McGannon Award. Thank you to the Office of Communication of the United Church of Christ, and Cheryl especially for this recognition. I also thank all the sponsors and the partners who made this possible. To quote media scholar and GMMP pioneer Margaret Gallagher, the GMMP is one of the most far-reaching collective enterprises of the global women's movement. The GMMP started as an idea almost 25 years ago to organize a single-day global monitoring of the world news media to see where women were. The idea was not an idle curiosity. It came out of frustration of media's seeming neglect of women, their lack of respect for the dignity and integrity of women all over the world. This idea became the first global monitoring in 1995 in some 70 countries, and it has grown into the global movement for media, for gender equality in and through the media that it is now. Think of a stream that becomes a river as tributaries merge into it, bringing life to the land through which it crosses. So it is with the GMMP, as more countries and more volunteers than we can count have joined in. The GMMP has created a global community of critical media audiences all over the world. It has amassed the largest body of statistical data on gender in the news media, data that is used as evidence to hold the news media accountable for observing industry ethics of fairness, accuracy, balance, and the basic tenets, really, of professionalism in journalism. This evidence has been used to lobby policymakers not to leave the media behind when they enact legislation on gender equality and women's rights. The GMMP is three things in one. It is a research project, it is an action network, and it is an activist movement. Thanks to the GMMP, we now know that out of every 4 people seen, heard, or read about in the mainstream news media globally, only 1 is a woman. Based on the trends, we forecast that it will take at least 3/4 of a century to reach parity. We have learned that women have reported 37% of the news since 2005, and we are intrigued as to whether this is the global glass ceiling for women in terms of their participation as reporters in the profession. Join us for the 2020 edition to find out. We know that the patterns of underrepresentation and misrepresentation of women have crossed over into online news delivery platforms, to the internet and to Twitter. We know that news media performance on gender equality is more or less identical the world over, whether in the USA, in Uruguay, or in Uganda. The empirical evidence reveals the sticky areas and points direction on where and how we should act. To quote Patricia Galicia from the team that has led the GMMP in Guatemala since 1995, the process has made it possible to raise awareness of journalists about the underrepresentation of women in the media. This group in Guatemala established the Mujeres al Aire network as a space for women radio practitioners to meet and learn about policy and program production. This group uses the media monitoring methodology to train university students to understand the media's role in reproducing racist and sexist practices and worldviews. The GMMP's network of volunteers is drawn from civil society, from faith groups, from universities, and even from the media industry itself. Visualize indigenous women's groups in Latin America, communication and journalism students and professors across Europe, journalists in the Middle East, feminist research networks in the Caribbean, and women's NGOs worldwide coming together for this single purpose. Right here in the USA, we have United Methodist Women that were present when the GMMP was just an idea, and 20 years later, they are still leading the effort of data collection in the US. The GMMP movement stands for gender equality in and through the media. The network convenes for the global monitoring once every 5 years, returning back to their spaces equipped with enhanced skills and resources. They return back to civil society to share the knowledge and step up advocacy. They return back to academia to teach and enhance the research, and back to media development spaces to help journalists discover the gender dimensions of their stories. To conclude, how many here watched Bridget Kosgei shatter the women's world record at the Chicago Marathon on Sunday? Or perhaps you did not notice it because you are still euphoric about Eliud Kipchoge's historic feat in Vienna as he pushed the limits of human endurance to complete a marathon in less than 2 hours. Many thoughts went through my mind as I watched him run, especially during the last 500 meters. I could not help but reflect on the GMMP experience and the lessons. Anything is possible if you put your mind to it, if you put in place a plan, and if you determine to see it through. I am thankful for the allies, the families, the friends that have been our pace setters along the way. I am grateful for this award and its affirmation of the project, the network, the movement. It inspires us not only to tire of mobilizing, not to tire of mobilizing, not to tire of monitoring the media to gather the data that we need on media's gender blind spots, and to use the evidence to advance a journalistic culture of respect for the rights and dignity of women and all. Thank you.